Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Yvonne from Ginger Chick Rehab. I'm so glad to have you back today, and if you're new here and visiting my channel for the first time, welcome. I do lots of DIYs, trash to treasure, furniture flips with my husband Chris, and thrifting adventures to fit into the farmhouse decor. So I am so excited. It is Sunday Funday, where I co-host with Yanni and Diane of Decor Easy. So if you have not checked out Yanni and Diane's channel, they have a wonderful channel. They are from the Netherlands and they do some wonderful farmhouse decor and just amazing displays and vignettes, and I just absolutely love their enthusiasm and I love their attention to detail. And so their link to their channel is down in my description box, so please click on there and check out their channel. So in today's video on Sunday Funday, it is an open collaboration. That means you could put whatever video you have that you have been working on. So in my video at the end of the month, happens to be that I am showing my thrift haul makeover. And so after the thrift hauls, I get busy working on the items that I have thrifted, and it does take a little bit of time, and I resell them in a retail booth that I have at an antique mall. And so this is the process of what I go through to get them to sell. And at the beginning part of today's video will be a quick little tutorial, a little product review. We have been humbly blessed by the NewAir company.
Hello everybody. Don't worry, Yvonne will be with you in just a little bit, but she wanted me to show off what NewAir just sent us. This is her new 23 bottle wine fridge, and let's unpack it and see what we've got. All right, like I said, this holds 23 bottles of wine. We'll open it up. It has some pretty neat features on the inside and outside. All the touch controls are right here on the outside of the fridge. If you open it up, the wine racks actually slide out for you. Now we're going to plug it in and see where its new home is going to be. Alright, so this is going to sit in front of our bar area. The bar area is pretty tall, so we really don't put stools here. It's just kind of to lean against. So to control this unit, first you hold down on these two buttons right here. To unlock it, you'll hear a beep. Alright, now I can control the temperature setting of what you want. You can also change it from Fahrenheit to Celsius. And there is a light on the inside you can turn on and off to display your wines. Like I said, this will hold 23 bottles of wine. She does not have that many at this time. I have a feeling she might be going to the store though and getting a few more. So this is a neat little fridge that I'm sure we'll get plenty of use out of. Thank you, NewAir. So this is our bar area downstairs in our basement. We already have a nice beer fridge down here with a front glass system. It was to replace this little mini fridge that we have back here. Now the mini fridge does work, but it does not hold that much beverages, and also it's not very energy efficient, seeing as how it's 20 some years old. We didn't know if the wine fridge would fit back in here. I just did some measurements and it looks like it will, so let's see what it looks like in its new home. Okay, I had to do a couple of modifications to the bottom of the shelf, but now it fits like a glove. And Yvonne is very happy. Thanks again, NewAir.
So here's some of the thrifted items I had gotten through my last two thrift hauls, and these are the items that I am going to be making over and giving new life, all to fit into my farmhouse decor, which will be, usually I'm painting things white, and now I've been adding a little bit of black. So as a reseller of items that I paint, I always feel that it's best to remove any kind of hardware, any mechanisms, anything that if you can detach something and paint them separately or not paint something on. I know some things are not possible to remove. I just feel as if you get a more clean paint job. So here I am trying to figure out if I can remove this clock face off this metal clock, and I can. I found some screws, and so I'm going to be removing it so that I don't build up paint along the edges of where this clock face laid, and I'll just get a cleaner paint job. So one of the items that I thrifted in these last 2 thrift hauls was this brand new clock for $9.99 at Salvation Army. And then when I flipped the box over to take the little twist ties off, I noticed the $129.99 price tag. So to remove the numbers off the front of this clock, it did have a whole bunch of screws, so I was able to remove the face. So when it comes to removing the hands off the clock, there are little screws on these little mechanisms, and then there's a little bit of it's not a complete circle on these, it's kind of an oblong with straight parts, but so you just want to be very gingerly when you're removing these, not to bend them, and then remembering which way you took them off. And even though the hands were a tin metal, the numbers were plastic. But I definitely knew painting that board white would just take it up a notch. So when I redo metal pieces, I prefer just to remove any mechanism, any hardware I can, and then I just like to soak them in hot dish soap, just Dawn dish soap. That way, because I'm going to be spray painting this, I can make sure that I get any residue off, they're nice and clean, and then I make sure that they are thoroughly dry before I spray paint. Or, when it comes to spray painting, if there's anything left behind, you will just get a mess. It will not adhere to metal. Now that I have them soaking in hot water, I go out to the wooden pieces, and then I start working on them, removing the price tags. This is so I get lots of comments on how to help remove price tags, so I thought I would give the blow dryer a try, but I think it doesn't really matter. It's all time consuming. And then also, why I'm removing price tags, I'm removing any other tag, any store sticker, anything that says I bought this at a thrift store and now I'm flipping it and selling it to you. I just think it looks more, to me, it looks better to remove any price tag, any store tag, any name tag. I mean, unless that it's a numbered item or something like that. These usually are not wonderful antiques when I am thrifting them. So, to me, it looks better if you just take any tag that you can off. And I definitely don't want to paint over a tag. Nothing says a flipped item like painting over a tag. And now, after I've gotten all the tags and stickers removed, I go through and I take any items apart. If there's a screw that I can take them apart to paint them separately, I do so. And this is only the second time I've done Lazy Susan, so I was happy to see that I could take those apart, along with these little clips. Any hardware, like I said, if you can paint that separately, just gives a cleaner paint job. And a lot of these candles that I just happen to have a hoard of candlesticks on this one, but they usually have, a lot of them, will have this little metal ring in them. So if I can remove it, I do remove it. Usually out of the wood items it will, but if I have thrifted like a press board, the very newer candlesticks, I usually cannot remove any of that without, if I have to bend it up and make it damaged, then I just leave it on. On this piece that I thrifted, it's probably a Hobby Lobby piece. I'm assessing, removing the tag, but I'm also assessing if I can remove this metal, which I was hoping for. And yes, it does have nuts on it that I am able to unscrew. Now, I'm not saying that it's always easy to unscrew them. Sometimes it's really easy and sometimes it's hard, but usually I find there's not too many pieces that I cannot take things apart from. So these next few items are some items that I didn't necessarily show you in a thrift haul. I don't really think that they're that exciting, especially since I'm going to make over. But I love when I find these metal signs. I absolutely love to flip these. And you see this one was golden. And so I'm showing you that it has hangers, and I'm going to be removing a hanger off this. And this is another one of those Hobby Lobby pieces. It's actually a metal board. It had little magnets. So I'm going to be flipping this also. And then I also came across these beautifully large candlesticks. And really for these, all I need is to clean that wax up. I will not have to do anything to these pieces. Let me just show you how easy these metal pieces are to clean up. Since I already have the blow dryer out here, just heat up that wax. Try not to touch, I'm holding it from the long part of the candle. So just heat that right up, and what it'll do is it will unattach that wax. And then I have a towel and I'll spray some of my crud cutter after I feel like that has gotten nice and hot. And then I spray some of the crud cutter, and then I just wipe it off with a towel and do that a couple times, and it absolutely works perfectly, and it's like brand new. So now it's time to begin the cleaning of the items. My go-to is this crud cutter. I absolutely love this. This is just a great way to prep your surface to get any residue off, any grease, grime, any cleaning product that the previous owner had used, and any sticker residue. Is just a great way to clean your item before painting so that your paint adheres properly. And not all items necessarily need to have all their sides painted. So here's some of the items that I put tape on, some masking tape that I just get at the dollar store, that I can just make sure that I keep my crisp line and don't make a mess. So I have to say, in this thrift haul, I didn't really have a lot that were needy that needed to be fixed. This little pig napkin holder did need a couple little new staples, so he was nice and secure, but I felt pretty good about that. And then I did have a few pieces that needed to be sanded. This, even though that plate holder looks like it's nice and, clean, it had polyurethane drips on it. And then, of course, this, I was taking the barn scene off just to give it an update. So I'm just going to use the rotary sander, and I've got like probably a 220 on there. I don't want to go into the wood. I just want to take that paint off and make it smooth. And then I had two of these added on, those metal wall decor signage. And the one had been painted gold over a pink. So I wanted to get that down to, because I don't really know what kind of gold they used on it. So when I went to stencil it, that it didn't pull off. And the other, even though it feels like you don't feel the words on that lighter one, a lot of times when you start to spray paint, you're like, oh no, I see it. So it's better just to sand it and make sure that you don't see any outlines of letters. So now it's on to start painting black. And so I'm starting off with my metal and resin iron, and then there's some press board. Just, those items that take weird to paint, that I just at least want to give them a good undercoat of this Rust-Oleum paint and primer in flat black. And when you go to spray paint, you don't want to try to cover with the first coat. You just want to get it on there, and you don't want your paint running. Even in the hot sun, it will still run, and drips on spray paint are never a good thing. So now they all have their first coat of spray paint, and now I will, I'll go back out and I'll cover them one more time, and then I'll flip them an opposite way. And some pieces will need to be like flipped, 4 different directions just to get the undercoat all covered up. And for some of these, this will be their final color. So now for the ones that they will stay black, I'm using my polyacrylic in matte, and what that'll do is that'll just seal that spray paint. And I know you're probably thinking, yes, you can stop there, but I don't know, it kind of gives an extra protection, because sometimes, yes, spray paint does chip off. So especially as a reseller, I like to make sure that I go one more step so I don't have to worry about, people touching it in my booth and hitting things together. So I want to make sure that it is nice and on there. Now I'm on to doing the undercoat for some of the other wooden items. And so I like this ready-to-use black onyx that I get right off the shelf at Walmart. This is just my go-to black paint. So I have to say that I was glad that I was able to take these Lazy Susans apart. And, the first one I painted, I taped the heck out of it. So I'm glad that these were able to come apart. So where like the little mechanism or any hinges are, when you're doing your paint, you want to go lightly over those edges, but it'll take a couple of the black paint to cover before moving on to the white. Now here's what everybody looks like with their 1 or 2 coats of black paint. So I had a really hard time deciding what I wanted to do with these I think these are absolutely beautiful candlesticks, but I do not like the red and the mahogany of it. So I am going to try this that I saw on Pinterest, where you're supposed to be able to use a stripper and strip that mahogany stain off. So what I'm doing here is I'm just applying, and I don't even know why. Every time I do that, I think I can apply this with a sponge brush. You cannot, it eats through them, so you need an actual brush, but so part of the video, yep, I was applying a brush, but this is what it looked like, and I literally let it sit on there for 2 hours, and then it took me an hour to sand with a coarse sand grit, like 150, and then I took a 220 to smooth it out. It was a lot of work, and it was still a little bit redder than I wanted it to be, but I was glad that I did not paint these beautiful wooden pieces. So now I'm on to painting my Kills paint and primer in the flat white that I get right off, again, the shelf at Walmart. And this is my go-to white paint. And so now all the pieces have their black, and so I am now just starting the process of painting white. And I choose to do light coats so that makes my sanding a little bit easier. So it'll take 2, 3, 4 coats. Every wood piece, every item just takes paint a little bit differently. So now it's back outside to paint the items that I would like, the metal or the resin items that I would like to be white. So even though that's not their final coat, I do give them 1 coat of the white just to help of the coverage. And then for these 2 signs, I did polyacrylic them in between, especially since I know that I'm going to stencil them. And metal is really sometimes kind of tricky when it goes to stenciling. So just that extra security of it staying to that metal and not pulling up that paint when I stencil it. So for some of these pieces, especially this clock, I'm going to be distressing them. And then when it comes to like metal distressing, I have a 300 grit that I'm using because even though I polyacrylic this, I only wanted to really go on where the little raised bumps of this cute clock were. So I'm just doing this very gingerly. And then I'm going to be using my Waverly antiquing wax just to give it a little bit of an aged look. And of course for this clock, I'm replacing the face, and then I always like to put a new battery in, like to show that especially in a retail booth, that the clock does work. So for a few of these other pieces that I spray painted black and that I polyacrylic, I'm just going to give a few of them a couple little distressings and then finish them off just to where I had distressed it, just to fill that in with that Waverly antiquing wax, and it just kind of gives it that aged and walnutly look that I'm looking for. So for these candlesticks that still have, the camera's not showing it, but they still have a little bit of an orangey in spots that, an hour sanding these is not going to make these sell any better or my price be any different, as I'm not keeping them for myself. So if I was keeping them for myself, I might, work a little bit harder at that. But like I said, the one just, 2 hours of, the stripper being on there and an hour sanding. Yeah, 3 hours work to a candlestick. So it was fun to try that process. So what I'm doing here is I wet my Waverly rag that, I had that on. And so what I'm doing here is just putting a little bit of that Waverly wax on there and with a really wet rag in hopes that maybe it'll tone those little orange spots down a little. So now these are the items, the metal, the resin, the plasticky pieces that I had, painted black with spray paint, and then I painted a coat of the white. As you see, the white of the spray paint is a little bit on the blue side, but I love the way that it sticks to these items. So then I just take a couple coats of my Kills paint primer and I get the white that I want, and I feel like it covers just fine. So I had a couple pieces, and they were just the candlesticks and the candelabra that were, as I was painting and moving them around, that I didn't feel when I was cleaning, they were a little bit on the loose side. So I am just using some of my CA glue to glue them, since I've already got a couple coats of paint. I'm just using a toothpick to get it down in there. And so what this does is it is, I guess you call it kind of like a super glue, but it has a dry activator that dries instantly. So I'm kind of just pushing it in there, and then I'll wipe off any excess, and then I will spray it with the activator. I've seen other ones where you can spray them first, but I have little control issues, so I like to get it and clean it off first before I spray it. So one more time on these two metal signs that I'm going to spray some polyacrylic in the mat. I just want to reassure, because I've had this happen way too many times where I go to stencil on metal pieces, and even though I use a blow dryer to heat that stencil back up, it pulls the paint. So, you know, when you've taken this much time to get a nice smooth paint job, you do not want that paint coming off with a stencil. And then I thought, why not, since I have the polyacrylic out and on these Lazy Susans, in case somebody's not using them necessarily for decor. And, you know, I know a lot of times Lazy Susans were always used for like condiments, you know, seasonings and stuff like that. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to give this at least the top of these a nice even coat of this polyacrylic just to protect it, since, you know, people might have food on these. So now all the white pieces are ready to be sanded and distressed. And as hard as I tried not to get white paint into these cracks, of course, you know, it happened. So I'm just taking a kitchen utensil. I'm just taking a kitchen sharp knife and just running it down that crack. So all you see is the black and not my white paint that dripped in that shiplap look. Then when I start the distressing part of sanding these pieces, if I had applied a tape to any area, I also remove the tape. Where you get that build up around the tape, the same thing happens when you tape off an item like this. And so there would be that hard, crusty feel on the side. So when I'm distressing, I like to take the sandpaper on that too, that you don't have that hard, crusty area of where the tape and the paint met. And I'm starting right off with this clock because I absolutely love that shiplappy look of this clock, and I just knew that it would distress, you know, the way that they kind of make that fake palette board, it just sucks in that black paint, so I knew this would distress really pretty. So when it comes to distressing a piece, what I do is I kind of push down harder where I want the piece to be, you know, to see that black or a little bit of the natural wood to go through. So, and then when I want to smooth the piece out, what I do is I just have it lightly going over just to take, you don't see the brush strokes, but you can feel the brush strokes. So I just want that to be nice and smooth, but where you want it to, some of that paint to show through, then you just press a little bit harder. And if you want a little bit more of the wood, then you just press a little bit harder than that. And I usually use like a 220 or a 150 grit, depending on how well the piece took the paint. So for the two signs that are metal, then I'm going to be putting some vinyl lettering on that I finished off with the last coat of polyacrylic. When it comes to distressing the metal, I am using, they are the last things that I am distressing, you know, in the white stage, that I am using that same sandpaper that's heavily used, meaning that, and I'm doing a light touch because it really does not take a ton for metal once you've spray painted it, and it, you know, there's nothing for it to soak into, so it's kind of just laying on there, and especially it hasn't really cured, you know, this is only like a day process for me to do this. So what I'm doing here is I'm just taking a light, unlike wood where I can, you know, have a heavy hand, I'm just really going over light over those bumpy areas. So for these pieces, I'm going to be stenciling on them, so I'm setting them off to the side for right now. After I've distressed, and then I don't have my air compressor because now that's out into the pole barn part of the shop, but I did use that blow dryer. I do actually have a craft blow dryer. So I just took the blow dryer to blow all that loose sand dust off, and then wiped any more off before I went onto this Varathane finishing wax. And I just this is one more step just to protect that paint, especially since it's white, even though it's got a primer in it, and you don't have to do this step. This is just one extra step that I like to make that nice and smooth to the touch. So at first I really taped the heck out of this clock because I wasn't sure if I was going to spray paint it, but then I decided that it would paint just fine. And so what I'm doing is taking a little bit of an X-Acto knife just to detach that tape. You know, the paint kind of globs up from the edge of, you know, the tape and the edge of the wood. So if I would go to try to rip this off, chances are that I would pull some of the edge paint off, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just gingerly taking that knife, just to release that paint and that tape from each other. And then I'm just going back through with just a Clorox wipe and getting, luckily this was real glass in the front of this clock, so it cleaned up really well. So now it's on to replacing and putting back all the hardware that I took off. So this is good to remember where you put all your screws and your nuts and your hinges. So now I'm just reattaching this back on. And then I need to attach a wire to this metal where I took off that ribbon that they had on. And so when I was doing it the first time, those little V shapes just pulled right out as soon as I tried to tighten up this wire, because I like to tighten it up as tight as I can so that you don't have the wire hanging above. And then on this little Hobby Lobby piece that actually, it turned out looking more like a chalkboard, but it was actually a metal board, must have a light tint on there. It did not have a hanger whatsoever, so I'm just using where you just hammer them in, center it in the middle and level it, to best of your ability. And then, so at least this now will have a hanger and somebody can hang it on the wall. So this little magnet board came with this cute little flowers, and they were yellow, and then I had spray painted them with the Rust-Oleum paint and primer black, and then a coat of the polyacrylic. But for them to show up a little bit more on that black board, I thought I would just touch them with a little bit of the Apple Barrel multi-use paint, and then give them one more quick spray with the polyacrylic just to seal that in, just so you can see those little details on those flowers. So I also got this cute little galvanized H10 looking little chalkboard, but I just thought that the jute twine, the rope that they had on it was just too thick for this piece. So what I'm doing here is they stapled it on really well. So I'm trying to cut it off without cutting that thin metal. And then I'm just going to be replacing it with this jute twine, just so you see the chalkboard itself and that nice galvanized, that tin, aged tin, more than you see the jute. So now I'm finally getting to the stencil part. You're probably thinking, oh yay. So right here is the ones that I'm going to be doing some vinyl lettering on, those metal boards. But what I'm doing here is I'm making sure that I get all that dust off. I'm dusting them nice, so it's all removed. And then I'm taking a Clorox wipe over where I'm going to be applying the stencil. That way you make sure that you get all that dust off, and then make sure that they're thoroughly dry. So I do this prep before I go in and start to print out my vinyl lettering. And then one more quick check that I have the hanger going the right way, so when I come out with my lettering, it's going in the right direction for hanging. So I'm just going to quickly run down what of the now that I'm a Cricut affiliate, that I'm going to just do a separate video on how I attached these and came up with these stencils for my stencil pieces for this project, because I know that this video runs long with all these, thrifted makeovers. So I'm going to do a whole separate video on what I did to create these stencils and how I applied them. So anybody that has a Cricut that wants to learn this process along with me as I'm learning it, I am going to do it'll come out in the next week or so, or less than a week actually, of what I'm doing on the Cricut. So now it's on to finishing up my last bundle, which is this black. And that some of these are, a couple of them got stencils put on them. And then all of these pieces will be getting the Waverly Antiquing Wax. So for sanding some of these black pieces, some of them were raw wood, meaning that the black paint just soaked right into them. So for these pieces, I am taking the rotary sander and just giving them, it's a 220 grit, and just really going at them and let then some of that raw wood just show right through. And then for the other black pieces that were not raw wood, and I ended up polyacrylicing these before sanding them and letting that dry, I'm just taking a 150 grit on the sharp edges just to let some of that natural wood shine through. And then taking some steel wool over the rest of the entire piece just to take any of that feel of the paint down. And then on this washboard, that was new material, so it was really shiny. So I'm going to actually rough it up and give it an aged look, so when I antique wax it, it looks aged. So now all the black pieces that I'm finishing up with are all sanded and distressed, and now it's on to adding this Waverly antiquing wax to give it a aged look. So especially on this little box, you will just see that just pop. What looks like just new, brand new wood is just going to pop, and you can just see how, you know, this new wood just, it's so dry, it just soaks that wax right in. Since I really didn't show you the stencil part of this, I was going to show you how I did stencil this little card box, and how I used a white apple barrel color for the stencil color, but just look how that just transforms it by putting the Waverly antiquing wax over it. And if you remember from my thrift haul, I said that I was pretty much out of black candlesticks. So I absolutely love the black candlesticks with the antiquing wax. I love these cute little piggies and how they turned out. And I absolutely love that farmhouse sign with that vinyl lettering. And, you know, I've kind of, when it comes to signs, I personally like original, but I noticed that just the plain farmhouse welcome, that type of stuff just sells as quick as I put it in. So, you know, sometimes you do what your buyers want. And I absolutely love how this little wooden ducky has turned out. And I've had some white wooden duckies in my booth since I opened it, and there they sit. So let's try this one in black and see how it does. And what do you think of this clock? I just, you know, $130, I don't think so. I'm sorry, I don't want to be like that. But, you know, I absolutely think it's upgraded, you know, to the black and the white, and those candlesticks are just absolutely beautiful. I would have liked them a little bit more, but you know, I can't change what the wood is what the wood is. And I absolutely love how this Be Kind turned out. Oh my goodness. And that welcome sign, like I said, you know, if people want it, I will make it. And I love these little lanterns. They're just, you know, a quick flip. And I just absolutely love what white does to these pieces. You know, sometimes I get these few negative comments that stick out in your head, but I'm sorry, I absolutely love these in white. And I just, you know, this candelabra and what that burgundy piece from Hobby Lobby that nobody wanted, just that black detail just sticks out now. And just that detail of that Pier 1 clock. I mean, I'm sorry, I just love the black and white look, and I just think to me, it's classic. And the distressing, it is just one of those looks that brings out the details that are hidden when it's wood. And for me, you know, you can't hurt it anymore. If you drop it, you get another mark on it, it just adds to the distressing. For me, these little clipboards, that wood color just hid that shiplap look of them, and spray painting with that undercoat of black and clearing out those sharp lines, just, you know, and that white little wire basket, and this Eddie Bauer clock that the hunter green is, you know, not really, you know, a trendy color, but I think white can just be handed down. That is a nice clock. And just, you know, a simple little, this little candle holder with these repainted pumpkins. And I absolutely love how this board now turns out. It can just be put in anybody's decor. I do have to say that when I'm doing these thrift haul flips that, you know, they are times consuming, but when I put these groupings together and take these pictures, I am myself at awe. I just absolutely love every piece that I do. And I am so lucky and blessed to have a retail booth to resell them, because our house would be overflowing. What do you think? How do you think these paper plate holders turned out? And these Lazy Susans, these are just one of those things that are hard to video, so I kind of set them on their side. Or even a simple napkin holder flip. I just love that little birdie, and I absolutely love this cute little pig. You know, anybody that, you know, birds, pigs, chickens, cows, you know, all farmhouse. I absolutely love how I just kept these plate hoarders generic, and then I probably will display a little bit of napkins and a little bit of plate holders so you know what they are. And, you know, that just helps in the reselling area also. So, you know, you're like, well, what is that? Oh, that's what that is. And as much as I love my white look, I absolutely love this black distressed stained in Waverly look also. They just kind of, to me, it's a classic color, you know, that, you know, can you be added to anybody's decor. I know it looks a little bit on the primitive side, but I can tell you that these sell just as fast as my white items sell, and I absolutely enjoy doing both of them. And remember that these candlesticks were on a Michael's clearance for less to nothing, 70% off, but I think the black shows them off way more than that creamish yellow that they were. And I love how this washboard turned out. I wish the tin was a little bit more galvanized, but you know, when if people are into doing their laundry rooms, it's just nice to have a little bit of the decor. And I absolutely love the little wire basket and these balls, whether you want to put it in the basket or like I have them on the candlesticks. I just like to give people some decor ideas. And this is the first time of me picking up a set of these cute little butterflies, and I absolutely thought that they painted up well. Along with this little plasticky, you know, basket. I love the lavender in it, and I had to skip that part of the video. It was just too long to show you how I did the flower arrangements and just changing out the jute on these chalkboards. And you know, there's my writing. That's why I stencil everything. So I absolutely, you know, thought I needed to add a little bit of fall that, you know, into my booth. So what did you think of my thrift haul makeovers into the farmhouse decor? I absolutely love doing these, and I hope that you loved and enjoyed the video. So please give me a comment of what your favorite item was, and would you have tackled on these? And this grouping was actually pretty simple of, you know, a lot of just painting, so I was, you know, pretty happy with that. Have I inspired you to look at thrifted items a different way, and that you might pick up things that you normally would never have picked up because you didn't think that maybe you could paint them? So, you know, that's one of the goals for my channels. I just like to get people looking at the thrifted items a little bit differently, the garage sale items, or even items that you have laying around your house that you put in a box because you're just tired of that home decor. Just, you know, maybe you want to get them out of that box and spruce them up with a new paint job. So I thank you if you're part of my YouTube family from the bottom of my heart that have helped me reach over 9,000 subscribers. I'm still every day amazed and humbly blessed by that. And if you'd like to become part of my YouTube family, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Thanks so much.